ओमज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। Hare Krishna. Here we have very nice points from Srila Prabhupada. We'll try to understand. We'll just see the translation from last 4-5 verses which we discussed yesterday. What Prabhupada has to share. Here, the personality of Godhead Kapila continued, my dear mother, now shall describe unto you the different categories of absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of modes of mental nature. So we have discussed how, based on different levels of consciousness, our understanding of absolute truth also differs. And one can understand Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means as a person, and that too as a Krishna, only through devotional service. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. That's what Krishna is telling. So if they don't have bhakti, they'll also understand some aspect of absolute truth. They may not understand the complete aspect. Even though absolute truth is one, but only one feature of absolute truth can be understood, either Brahman feature or Paramatma feature. But Bhagavan feature is only by bhakti, like that. Then we have understood that many diverse departments of knowledge are there. Why they are there? In understanding Krishna, especially meant for persons who are conditioned in material world. So different conditions, different methods are there. Like people, they are going to Himalayas and doing tapasya. Why we cannot do? They have very strong yoga inclinations. That's why they are able to do it. It like that. So we have to understand, and then and it is generally understood that the parampara system or by disciplic succession to be the science of devotion. So for us, it is hearing only. So if you remember 30th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells some people they understand this Paramatma by Sankhya, Karma, and Dhyana. But there are other people, 26, 13.26 is very important, where Krishna tells that somebody, because they have an inclination to hear properly from authority, and then they'll perform devotional service and go back home back to Godhead. So that is the method we are applying here, and that's what Prabhupada says here. And even then he says, as long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or laud it or material nature, there is no chance of his being free from the influence of material. So our influence of material world is proportionate to desire to enjoy here. So why we discussed why the pure devotees are free from material modes? So this is the reason why pure devotees are not affected by modes. Why? Because they don't have material desires. That's very simple. So this is proportionate to material desires. That's all. They also get bodies as per karma. I didn't understand, Shyamukundru, your question. Can you elaborate? And this is there are spiritual desires. There no material desires, no influence of modes. To the degree my desires are decreasing, to the degree my effects are decreasing. Okay. Yeah. They have the strong inclinations to perform yoga. They get the bodies also which is suitable for it. Yeah, that is right. And then next is knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. So this is not just knowledge, it's a vijnanas, realized knowledge. That is the ultimate perfection. I shall explain that knowledge unto you by which the knots of attachment to material world are cut. How the knots are cut just by the knowledge? Because if you properly hear it, immediately we can be free. That was the Vedic system. And that's actually 13.26 also. In 13.26, Krishna tells this thing very clearly. And he explains that how if a person he is following just by hearing very sincerely. If somebody hears, he'll be able to free from that, and he can attain perfection. Our method is very simple. We have to be, the quality of hearing matters. If we are very humble and submissive, in that way we are hearing from right source, immediately we can get the maximum benefit. So anyetvam evam ajanantah shrutva nebhyo upasate tepi chanti taranti eva mrityum suti parayana. So in the 25th shloka, when Krishna says ध्यानेन आत्मनि पश्यन्ति केचित् आत्मानम् आत्माना अन्ये सांख्येन योगेन कर्म योगेन चापरे. There is by dhyana or sankhya yoga or karma yoga, you can pashyanti, you can realize this Paramatma Vijay. But in 26 it says Anye eva ajanantaha, who don't have spiritual knowledge, like now Kali Yuga people, they don't have much. But Shrutva nebhya upasate, just by hearing we are worshipping Krishna, we don't have much. Tepi chapi taranti eva, he says they can also cross mrityum suti parayana, mrityu, they can mrityu taranti eva, you can cross over birth and death. By, because Shruti Parayana, we are having this desire to hear properly. So this is the qualification. So proper hearing, understanding this knowledge, we can attain perfection. Then we discussed here that by that proper understanding of pure self or by self-relation, knowledge leads one to the attainment of ultimate perfection. And here it is purpose is hearing from proper authoritative sources. And that means hearing is proportionate to state of our mind, humility. We discussed this many times also. Children, they learn very fast because they are humble. That is one of the reasons. As we grow, our ego also grows. Then our ability to learn things becomes slow compared to what they can learn. If a 4-year child can learn the language faster than a 30-year-old person. Why? Because he is very humble. He knows I don't know anything. So the children, they know that they don't know. That's why it becomes very easy. They remain humble in that way. The system works very fast for them. And now many things are there. And here the false ego. Yeah. When one can cut the knot of attachment to material world, his understanding is called knowledge. Atma Darshana means to see oneself by knowledge. Therefore, when one is free from false ego by cultivation of real knowledge, he sees himself. That is our formula. We want to see ourselves. I am servant. Then that is by giving up false ego and getting real ego. And then next one is the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a super soul. And he has no beginning. So here in the first he said that in the first shloka he is telling that I shall describe unto you different categories of absolute truth, knowing which a person can be released from modes. Second he says, knowing this ultimate perfection of self-realization, you will be able to cut the knots of material attachment. And now he says that the Supreme Personality of God, Super Soul, he has no beginning, now he started that knowledge. So he first glorified what he's telling. Now he started explaining that knowledge. What is the Supreme Lord? He's transcendental to material modes, beyond the existence of material world, is perceivable everywhere because he's self-effulgent and his self-effulgent luster, the entire creation is maintained. And here, a very important thing Prabhupada says that the Lord is described as soul or spirit. What is the definition of spirit? Spirit is perceivable everywhere. Why it is perceivable everywhere? Because it is more subtler. So we discussed also. Earth is at one level and then there is water and then there is fire and more it goes subtler, then more it is it is perceived everywhere. Air you can see everywhere and space is there everywhere, right? And then more subtler, mind, intelligence, ego, and then soul. Sarvatah Panipadam Tat Sarvatopi Shiromam. We discussed this also. And then next shloka, he says that as his pastime, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of great, accepted the subtle metal energy, which is invested with three modes of metal nature, which is related with Vishnu. So here, the accepted subtle metal energy, which is invested with three modes of metal nature. That means he entered here without getting affected. And it is related to Vishnu's. All these three forms of Vishnu, Garbhodaksha, Iksharadaksha, like that. In this word, the Gunamayi is very significant. We have discussed this part also. That and Prabhupada explains this very nicely. The energy emanating from Supreme Personality of Godhead is in two ways, as emanating from the Supreme Lord and as a covering of Lord's face. So there are two things. It is covering Lord's face, like we discussed. The sun cannot cover the sun cannot be covered by cloud, but it can cover the living entity. And now today's verse, he says that Gunair vichitra srajatim sarupa prakritim praja vilokya mumuhe satyah sa iha jnana guhyaya. Divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of living entities, and living entities seeing this all illusioned by knowledge, covering features of the illusory energy. So now, what Kapil Dev said, that Lord has accepted these three modes. That means he entered it. And then what is this? Dividing into varieties of a threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of living entities. Now, Karanam Gunasangasya Sadasad Yoni Janmashu. The living entity, when it comes into contact with material nature, they get different forms. We are getting this form is the transformation of material modes, but based on what? The living entity's desires. And here the living entity enters, seeing this an illusion are illusioned by knowledge, covering feature of illusory energy. So we are covered. There are 5 types of covering we know. There is Tamishra, Andatamishra, Moha, Mahamoha, all these things. 5 types of coverings what are we say Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesha, Abhinivesha. All these illusory coverings are very much needed for a living entity to enjoy in this material world. We need to enjoy. Say, if I want to take somebody else's car and drive, and I have to pretend as if I don't know who is the owner. I know I want to enjoy the car. It's like that. We have to be in some sort of ignorance. I don't know who is this. I'm just taking for myself. It's always there only. So I want to use it. You need to have some sort of ignorance. So in this world, all the elements belongs to the Supreme Lord, but I don't know whose. I think it's mine only. I made it on my name. So let me enjoy. If we want to enjoy material nature means we have to be in ignorance, because somebody else's property, how will we enjoy? In normal state, a person will not enjoy others' property. We say in person, don't enjoy others' property. We need to be in a sort of ignorance to enjoy others. So that covering of illusory energy is causing ignorance. And Prabhupada write very big purport. Metal energy has the power to cover knowledge. So this what it is covering? The knowledge of the self. That means we are knowledge of self is covered. So knowledge of self is covered here. Then, but this covering cannot be applied to Supreme Personality of God. It is applicable only to the praja, or those who are born with material bodies, the conditioned souls. The different kinds of living entities vary according to the modes of material nature, as explained in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. The different kinds of according to the modes. That means our external coverings, the bodies are based on the modes according to. It is very nicely explained that although the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, bar of Supreme Personality of God, he is not subjected to them. In other words, the energy emanate from the Supreme Personality of God cannot act on him. Like now, the energy that is coming from the Lord cannot act on him, but will act on us. It acts on the conditions those who are covered. The Lord is Father of all living entities because he impregnates material nature. Therefore, the condition source gets bodies created with material energy, whereas the Father of living entities is aloof. That is clear. It is stated in the previous verse that the material energy was accepted by Supreme Personality of Godhead in order that he might exhibit pastimes for the living entities who wanted to enjoy and lord it over material nature. So this is another understanding. What it means that material nature was accepted by Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means he might exhibit pastimes for living entities who want to enjoy. This world was created through material energy of Lord for the so-called enjoyment. So this is the pastime of Lord. So the Purushavataras, they are creating all these things. This is also Shushti Leela of the Lord. This is also a pastime. Leela means you don't have anything to do. You're just enjoying. That is called Leela. So for Lord, this is also Leela, but this is Shushti Leela. He's just enjoying. And why this material world was created for the suffering of conditions is very intricate question. There is a hint in the previous verse in the word Leelaya, means the pastime of Lord. So why Lord created it is Leelaya. The Lord wants to rectify the enjoying temperament of conditions. So this is the reason why Lord created. He want to rectify the enjoying temperament of the conditioned souls. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that no one is enjoyer but the Supreme Personality. Bhoktara Mityatapsa. This mental energy is created, therefore, for anyone who pretend to enjoy. An example can be cited here that there is no necessity for the government creating a separate police department, but because it is a fact that some of the citizens will not accept the state laws, a department to deal with the criminals is necessary. There is no necessity, but at the same time, there is necessity. Similarly, there is no necessity to create material world for the suffering of conditions, but at the same time, there is certain living entities known as Nitya Baddhas who are eternally conditioned, who say that they have been conditioned from time immemorial, because no one can trace out when the living entity, the part and parcel, became rebellious against the Supreme Lord. So this is the, so it is called Leelamay. Lord is also Leelamay, Lord is also Karunamay. He creates Leelas, he also shows compassion. In fact, there are two classes of men. Those, they are Nitya Baddhas and Nitya Muktas. And then there are 84 lakhs of species, proper rates, and we are going. And based on what? Karanam Gunasangasha. Based on our desires, material nature is giving. And how do we get desires? Based on our association. That is how the system works. So it is very simple system. Living entity associates with material nature. And because of this association, he develops desires. And based on desires, he'll get bodies. Like that. So you associate, you get desires, and that will develop body. And with this body, you perform action, which further leads to more desires and more bodies. So this is how action leads to more desires, and that leads to more bodies, and again action. So the cycle continues like this. And in the material world, there are 84. As spirit soul, they are all transcendental to material world. Why then do they exhibit themselves in different stages of life? The answer is given here. They are under the spell of three modes of material nature. Because they were created by material energy, their bodies are made of material elements covered by the material body. the spiritual identity is lost. Therefore, the word mumuhe is used here, indicating that they have forgotten their own spiritual identity. So, this is what is explained. It is repeatedly said in the Katha Upanishad that the Supreme Personality of God is never affected by the influence of material energy. So, same thing. And एवं प्राभिध्यानेन कृत्वं प्रकृते पुमान् कर्मासु क्रियमाणेषु गुणैरात्मनि मन्यते. Because of his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities, and thus acquitted he wrongly applies the activities to himself. Now he is giving the first he told the Supreme Lord is accepting, and then the living entities are illusion, and because of their illusion, what they are doing, they have wrong identification. So this is the complete system. And because we have illusion, because of this forgetfulness, which is explained in the previous, because of his forgetfulness, even though we are transcendental, wrongly apply the activities to himself. Otherwise, they are done by what? By material nature. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudatma. Because the forgetful living entity can be compared to a man who is under the influence of disease and has become mad, or to the man haunted by ghosts, without acts, without control, acting himself to be in control. Under the influence of material nature, the conditions becomes absorbed in material consciousness. In this consciousness, whatever is done under the influence of mental nature, it is all now once you are mad, then everything is mad, done like that only. And we have to purify that consciousness. Tadasya samsritir paratantriam cha tatkritam bhavya akritur ishasya sakshino nivritatmanah. Material consciousness is cause of one's conditioned life. Now, once you identify wrongly, then what happens? It's a cause of our conditioned life. We are more and more entangled, and which the conditions are enforced upon the living entity by material energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to such activity, he is thus affected by conditioned life. So material consciousness. Now what happens is, as such, the soul has spiritual consciousness. Because of wrong identification, we get this conditioned consciousness. Wrong identification. So this is what is explained. So connection to the previous verse, because of that wrong identification which it is told here, no? Wrongly applies the activities to himself. You think he is the doer, and because that is called material consciousness, and we are all affected by that consciousness only. That is what is the cause of conditional. As long as I think I am the doer, I am the doer, I am the doer, we are material conscious, and we know that's what Bhagavad Gita Krishna explains also, where he says that in the 21st verse of 13th chapter, he says, Karya Karana Kartritva Hetar Prakriti. Actually, Prakriti is doing the activities, but Purusha Sukha Dukkhanam Bhoktutve Heturuchyate. But we, because of identification, Purusha Sukha Dukkhanam, we are actually experiencing. So, this is the cause of conditioned life. Purusha Sukha Dukkhanam, we are experiencing. The Maya, the philosopher who does not differentiate between the supreme spirit and individual spirit, say that the conditional existence of living entities is Leela or pastime. But the word pastime implies employment in the activities of Lord. Mayavadi misuse the word and say that even if the living entity has become stool-eating hog, he is also enjoying his pastime. This is the most dangerous interpretation. Proper this is the most dangerous interpretation, because he's eating stool also. He's thinking, he's my others are telling It is his stool eating pastime. How pastime? What is this pastime? Actually, the Supreme Lord is the leader and maintainer of love. His pastimes are transcendental to any material element. Pastime is should be transcendent. Such pastimes of the Lord cannot be dragged to the level of conditional activities of living entity. Conditional life, the living entity actually remains as if captive by the hands of material energy. Whatever the material energy dictates, the conditions does. He has no responsibility. He simply witnesses of the actions, that's all. Prakriti kriyamanani, that's all. We cannot do anything. And very clearly, what Krishna also explains in Bhagavad Gita, that we are not actually the doers. Purusha prakritistohi bhunkte prakriti jangur. Karanam gunasangasya, that's what Karana. Bhunkte prakriti jangura. That is ultimately done by the Supreme Lord only. We cannot, it is not us who is doing the activity, but he is forcefully. He has no response, he is simply the witness of the actions, but he is forced to act in that way due to his offense in the eternal relationship with Krishna. Such a nice point, Prabhupada is telling. We are doing due to offense in relation with Krishna. Now also, if we are chanting and we are offensive, then the punishment is there. Lord Krishna therefore says in Bhagavad Gita that Maya, his material energy, is so forceful that it is insurmountable. But if a living entity simply understands that his constitutional position is to serve Krishna and he tries to act on this principle, then however conditioned he may be, the influence of Maya immediately vanishes. This is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter. Krishna takes charge of anyone who surrenders to him in helplessness. And that the influence of Maya conditional life is removed. So here now, offense in our relationship with Krishna. Now also we discussed previously, when we call name of Krishna, Krishna immediately comes because he is very simple. He thinks somebody is calling me, but we don't pay attention. That's why offense. All the problems in relationship in this metal world are because our relationship with Krishna is not good. If we settle relations with Krishna, all the relations in this metal world are also good for us. कार्य कारणम कर्तृत्वे कारणम प्रकृतिम विदु भोक्तृत्वे सुख दुखानां पुरुषम प्रकृते परम. So same thing. 21st verse of 13th chapter, what Krishna is telling here, Bhagavatam also Kapil Dev is telling. The cause of conditions whose material body and senses, the sense spread, means presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by the learned man. The feeling of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental in nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself. Even the activities are caused by material nature. Why the suffering is for the living entity? I should not get anything. Na? If something is done by material nature, why I am getting affected? Because I identify. That's what. And here Prabhupada also is explaining. Bhagavad Gita said that the Lord descends in this material world. He comes as a person by his own energy, Atmaya. He is not forced by any superior. He comes by his own will, and this can be called his pastime. But here, the conditioned soul is forced to take a certain type of body and senses under the influence of modes of nature. That body is not received according to his own choice. In other words, the conditioned soul has no free choice. He has to accept a certain type of body according to his karma. But when there is bodily reaction as felt in happiness and distress, it is to be understood that the cause is the spirit soul himself. Why? Because Prabhupada, if he so desires, the spirit soul can change this conditioned life by duality by choosing to serve Krishna. The living entity is cause of his own suffering, but he can also be the cause of his eternal happiness. So what he has to do? Desire should be changed. So if you again cultivate a desire to serve Krishna, choosing to serve Krishna, we can be free from these dualities. When he wants to engage in Krishna conscious, subtle body is offered to him by internal potency. Sorry, suitable body by internal potency. We want to serve. So what need to be changed is desire only. And desire is how? Desire is based on association. That's all. And when he wants to satisfy his senses, a material body is offered. When we want to satisfy Krishna, spiritual body is offered. The Mayavadi philosopher's presentation is that the living entity enjoys his pastime by accepting how this theory is not acceptable. So now from here, Devati asks, now because Kapil Dev indicated about Purusha and Prakriti, how the living entities got entangled. Now Devati wanted to know more about it. How exactly in detail how they are entangled? You told they are entangled. So can you explain in detail how the entanglement happens? Devati Ruvacha Prakrite Purushasyapi Lakshanam Purushottama Buruhi Karanayor Asya Sadasatcha Yat Atmakam. Devati said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, kindly explain the characteristics of the Supreme Person and his energy. For both of these are the cause of this manifestation and unmanifested creation. So she wanted to know how Supreme Lord is doing all these things. And very big purport. Prakriti or material nature is connected with both the Supreme Lord and the living entities. Just as a woman is connected with her husband as a wife and her children as a mother. This is very nice analogy. So husband is like Purusha and living entities are, children are like living entities. So mother is connected to both. The Lord says he is the impregnate mother nature with children, living entities, and therefore all species of living entities becomes manifested. The relationship of all living entities with material nature has been explained. Now, as understanding of the relationship between material nature and the Supreme Lord is sought. So, three things here. Very simple formula. Every time we should, these three things should be remembered. Supreme Lord, material nature, and living entity. So the connection between these three that need to be understood. And this is actually what is proper understanding of philosophy. The question is why Prakriti is called Binna Prakriti. This is this energy is meant for conditioning living entities. That's why it's Binna. His internal potency, Lord enjoys his pastimes. This external potency is for the living entities. That's why it is Binna. Even though it is separated, it is also not any less. Daiviyesha Gunamayi Mamaya Duratte. So Mama Maya only, that is Lord's only, but it is not for his internal energy, internal pastimes. It is for living entities. That's why. And now, as understanding of the relationship between material nature and Supreme Lord is sought by Devati, the product of the relationship is stated to be manifested and unmanifested material world. The unmanifested material world is called Settled Mahatattva, and from that Mahatattva, the material manifestation is emanated. So the relationship is stated to be manifest, and the unmanifested is Mahat. Unmanifested material world is a subtle Mahatattva. And then Pradhan and then Mahatattva. So Vedic literature said that by glance of the Supreme Lord, the total material energy is impregnated. Right? And now Devati wanted to know more about it. It's not that nature works blindly. After understanding the position of conditions or relation with material nature, Devati wanted to know how nature works under the direction of the Lord. The relationship of living entity with matter and that of the Supreme Lord with matter certainly not on the same level, although Mayavadis may interpret it in that way. When it is said that the living entity are bewildered by the Mayavadi philosophers ascribe this bewilderment to the Supreme Lord, but it is not applicable. The Lord is never bewildered. This is another important thing to understand. The difference between conditions and living entities, one is master of the material nature, one is controlled by material nature. The two words used here, Sat and Asat. The cosmic manifestation is Sat, does not exist. But the material nature of the Supreme Lord is Sat. are ever existing. The material nature is ever existing in its subtle form as the energy of the Lord, but it sometimes manifests uh, this non-existence or temporary existent nature, the cosmos. An analogy may be made with the father and mother. When the father and mother exist, at some time mother begets children. Similarly, this cosmic manifestation, which comes from the unmanifested material nature of the Supreme Lord, sometimes appear and again disappear. So bhutva bhutva praliyate. So this creation, it is in the sense asat because it is not manifested sometimes. It is in the body of Mahavishnu or whatever in the Pradhan. So like that. So it is manifested and manifested. So now here onwards, Kapil Dev is going to answer Mother Devati's question, how the creation happened. So we'll discuss tomorrow. Any questions, comments? Okay, we'll end here. Thank you all very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam